I stood in the gallery with a glass of champagne I couldn't taste, staring at the painting on the center wall. The light caught the texture of the mountains just right, the way I'd always imagined them when I was learning to layer oils in my 20s. My daughter-in-law, Emma, stood beneath it in a black dress, smiling for photographs. The placard read, "Appalachian Dusk, Emma Chen, 2023. I felt my hands go cold. Those mountains were mine. I had painted them 30 years ago.
My name is Robert, and I spent most of my adult life teaching high school art in a small town outside Asheville. I married young, raised 2 sons, and painted whenever I could steal an hour. My wife, Linda, passed away when the boys were still in college. After that, painting became something more than a hobby. It was how I survived. I was never famous, never tried to be. I painted because it made sense of things, loss, memory, the way light falls on ridgelines at the end of October. Over the years, I've built up a collection, maybe 40 pieces, all stored in the spare bedroom upstairs. Landscapes, mostly. A few portraits. One unfinished series about the Appalachian Trail that I always meant to complete.
My younger son, Daniel, was the one who understood that side of me. He'd sit on the porch with me on weekends, asking questions about technique, about why I chose certain colors. He married Emma 4 years ago. She was an art student when they met, ambitious, talented, full of ideas. I liked her. She had a sharpness to her that reminded me of Linda. Emma didn't come from much. Her parents had immigrated from Taiwan when she was young, worked long hours running a dry cleaning business. She talked about wanting to make it as an artist, about gallery shows and residencies. I respected that hunger. I'd felt it once too, before life got in the way. After the wedding, Daniel and Emma moved into a rental a few miles from my place. Money was tight for them. Daniel worked in IT support. Emma freelanced as a graphic designer while trying to build her portfolio. I helped where I could. Dinners, small checks when the car broke down, that sort of thing. I figured that's what family does. One afternoon, Emma came by while Daniel was at work. She asked if she could look through my paintings. For inspiration, she said. I was flattered. I led her upstairs, pulled the canvases out one by one, told her the stories behind them. She took photographs on her phone, said she wanted to study my brushwork. I thought it was sweet. I thought she cared. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was. But at the time, it felt like connection. It felt like someone finally understood what those paintings meant to me. Emma asked questions that no one else had asked in years. She wanted to know about my color choices, about how I decided when a piece was finished, about the emotional state I was in when I painted certain scenes. I told her about the cabin painting, how I'd hiked up to Max Patch on a cold morning in November, how the mist had been so thick I could barely see 10 feet ahead. I told her about setting up my portable easel right there on the ridge, my fingers going numb as I sketched the basic composition. I told her about Linda, about how she'd been sick for 3 months by then, about how I needed to feel something other than helpless. Emma listened with this intensity that made me feel heard. She nodded at all the right moments. She said things like, "That must have been so hard," and "I can feel that emotion in the piece." When she left that day, she hugged me at the door and thanked me for sharing my work with her. She said it meant a lot. I went to bed that night feeling lighter than I had in months. I thought I'd found someone who understood, someone who valued what I'd created, even if the rest of the world never had. 6 months ago, Emma called to invite me to a gallery opening. She'd been juried into a group show in Asheville. A real opportunity, she said. Her voice was bright, almost breathless. I told her I was proud. I drove into the city on a Friday evening, parked 3 blocks away, and walked through streets that smelled like rain and food trucks. The gallery was crowded. Young people in dark clothes holding wine glasses, speaking in low, serious tones about composition and narrative. I felt out of place in my khakis and button-down, but I found Emma near the back. She hugged me, introduced me to a few people as my father-in-law, Robert, no mention of my own work. I didn't mind. This was her night. Then I saw the painting. It hung on the main wall, lit by a spotlight. Mountains, layered in purples and grays, a sky bleeding orange at the edges, a lone cabin tucked into the valley. I knew it instantly. I had painted that view from a campsite near Max Patch in 1994. I remembered the trip, 3 days alone after Linda's diagnosis, trying to clear my head. I'd worked on that canvas for weeks afterward, trying to capture not just the landscape, but the weight I'd felt standing there. But this version was slightly different. The colors were bolder. The cabin had been moved a few degrees to the left. The brush strokes were confident, exact. It was my composition, my vision, just polished, refined, made gallery-ready. I walked closer, read the placard. Appalachian Dusk, Emma Chen, 2023. My chest tightened. I looked around for Daniel, found him near the wine table. I asked him if he'd seen the painting. He nodded, grinning. Isn't it amazing? She worked on it for months. I didn't know what to say. I felt like the floor had tilted beneath me. I smiled and nodded and said something about how talented she was. Then I excused myself, said I needed some air. I stood outside the gallery for 10 minutes, breathing slowly, trying to process what I'd just seen. When I went back inside, Emma was giving a small talk to a group of attendees. I stood at the back and listened. She talked about her journey as an artist, about finding her voice, about how these landscapes represented her personal connection to the mountains. She talked about the months of work, the research, the emotional investment. She never mentioned me, not once. I went home early, told them I wasn't feeling well. Daniel texted me later, asking if I was okay. I said I was fine, just tired. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the image in my mind, comparing it to my original. I went upstairs and found the painting. It was still there, leaning against the wall where I'd left it, but something felt wrong. I started checking the others, pulling them out, counting them. 3 more were missing. I stood there in the spare bedroom at 2 in the morning, surrounded by canvases, trying to remember exactly what had been there before. My hands were shaking. I felt violated in a way I couldn't quite articulate. These weren't just paintings. They were pieces of my life, my grief, my survival. And they were gone. I called Daniel the next morning, tried to keep my voice steady. I asked if Emma had borrowed any of my work. He paused. Then he said, "Oh, yeah, she mentioned she wanted to study a few of them more closely. She's planning to bring them back." When did she take them? I don't know, Dad. A few months ago? She's been really focused on this show. I'm sure she'll return them soon. Which ones did she take? I don't remember. Does it matter? She's just studying them. I hung up, sat at the kitchen table, tried to convince myself it was innocent. Maybe she really was just studying them. Maybe the similarity was coincidental. Maybe I was overreacting. But the gallery placard kept flashing in my mind. Emma Chen, 2023. A week later, I got a call from an old colleague, Margaret, who taught ceramics at the community college. She'd seen the show. She asked me, carefully, if I knew Emma had used my work. "I recognized your style," she said. "The way you do ridge lines. It's very distinct. Robert, that painting looked exactly like the one you showed me years ago. The one from Max Patch." I didn't know what to tell her. My throat felt tight. I said I'd talk to Emma, but I didn't. I felt paralyzed. Emma was family. She was Daniel's wife. If I accused her of something, it would fracture everything. Daniel would have to choose sides. There would be arguments, resentment, broken relationships. I thought about holidays, about birthdays, about all the future moments that would become impossible if I spoke up. So I waited, watched, hoped she'd say something first, hoped she'd acknowledge what she'd done, maybe even credit me in some way. I kept checking her social media, looking for any mention of my influence, any hint that she recognized where her inspiration had come from. She didn't. Instead, Emma's career started to take off. The gallery sold Appalachian Dusk for $1,200. A few weeks later, she posted on social media about being accepted into a juried exhibition in Charlotte. The preview images showed two more paintings, both landscapes I recognized immediately. One was a view of the Blue Ridge Parkway I'd painted in 1998, a scene I'd captured during a road trip with Linda just months before she died. The other was a winter scene from my unfinished Appalachian Trail series, a piece I'd abandoned because I could never quite get the light right. Emma had gotten the light right. She'd finished what I'd started. I felt sick. I felt angry. But more than anything, I felt invisible, like my entire artistic life had been erased and rewritten with someone else's name on it. I called Daniel again. This time, I was more direct. I told him I needed my paintings back. He sounded confused, a little annoyed. Emma says she's still studying them. Can it wait until after Charlotte? No, I said, it can't. He sighed. Dad, she's under a lot of pressure right now. This is a big deal for her. Can you just give her a little space? She's finally getting recognition for her work. Don't make this weird. I didn't push further. I was afraid of what it would cost me. I was afraid of losing my son. But then the reviews started coming in. A local arts blog praised Emma's distinctive voice and deeply personal connection to Appalachian landscapes. An interview was published in a regional magazine. In it, Emma talked about growing up disconnected from nature, about finding solace in the mountains as an adult, about how these landscapes had healed her in ways she couldn't explain. She talked about her process, about spending months researching locations, hiking trails, sitting with the land. She talked about the emotional work of translating feeling into paint. She talked about influences. She mentioned Andrew Wyeth. She mentioned some contemporary landscape painters I'd never heard of. She never mentioned me. She never mentioned studying anyone else's work. I printed the interview, read it over and over. Each word felt like a small theft. Each claim of originality felt like a lie I was complicit in by staying silent. I started losing weight, stopped painting. The spare bedroom felt like a crime scene. I'd go up there and count the missing canvases. Maybe 5, now maybe 6. I couldn't remember exactly. I'd been so eager to share it with her, so proud to have someone interested. I started having dreams where I was in a gallery, surrounded by my own paintings, but everyone kept telling me I was mistaken. They'd point to the placards with Emma's name and look at me with pity, like I was some confused old man who couldn't tell reality from fantasy. Margaret called again. She'd heard through the grapevine that Emma was being considered for a residency at an arts foundation in Vermont. You need to say something before this goes further. Robert, this isn't just about the paintings anymore. She's building an entire career on your work. What happens when she gets that residency? What happens when she starts teaching other artists, using techniques she learned from you, passing them off as her own discoveries? I knew she was right. But every time I picked up the phone, I imagined Daniel's face, imagined him choosing Emma over me, imagined Thanksgiving dinners that would never happen again, imagined dying alone, estranged from my son, all because I'd insisted on being acknowledged. Was it worth it? Were these paintings worth losing my family? Then, one evening, I drove past their rental. Emma's car was in the driveway, but Daniel's wasn't. I sat there for a long time, engine idling,
trying to convince myself to knock on the door, to have the conversation, to ask her directly why she'd done this. But I couldn't. I felt like a coward. I turned around and went home. That night, I stood in the spare bedroom and looked at what was left of my collection. 35 years of work, hundreds of hours, thousands of decisions about color and composition and meaning. All of it sitting in a room no one ever saw, gathering dust, forgotten. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe I wasted it. Maybe I should have done something with these paintings years ago. Maybe my silence had been its own kind of surrender, but that didn't make what she'd done okay. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every artist who'd ever been taken advantage of, every person who'd shared something precious and had it used against them, every quiet, unrecognized life's work that got stolen by someone louder, bolder, more willing to claim credit.
The break came from an unexpected place. My older son, Nathan, called me from Boston. He'd seen Emma's work online. Someone had shared it in an art group he followed. Nathan had grown up watching me paint. He'd spent afternoons in that spare bedroom, watching me mix colors, asking questions about perspective and light. He knew my style. "Dad," he said, "those are yours, aren't they?" I didn't answer right away. My throat had closed up. Hearing someone else say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "Dad?" "Yes," I said quietly. "They are." Nathan was silent for a long moment. Then, "Does Daniel know?" "I don't think so." "You need to tell him. This is fraud, Dad. She's selling your work as her own. That's not inspiration. That's theft." "She changed them a little," I said, though I hated how weak it sounded. "She made them better in some ways, more professional." "That doesn't matter. The composition, the concept, it's yours. The emotional core is yours. She didn't just learn from you, she copied you, and she's profiting from it while you get nothing, not even credit." He paused. "You need documentation. Do you have photos, dates, anything that proves you created these first?" I thought about it. I'd kept notebooks over the years. Sketches, notes about color mixing, dates I'd finished, pieces. I hadn't looked at them in years, but they were still in a box in the basement, tucked behind old holiday decorations and boxes of Linda's things I'd never been able to sort through. That night, I went downstairs and found them. 3 spiral-bound notebooks, their covers worn and stained. I opened the first one and saw my own handwriting from 1994, page after page of thumbnail sketches, color notes, observations about weather and mood. There was the Max Patch painting, sketched out with notes. Finished 11th, 18th, 94. Used burnt umber base, layered with ultramarine and dioxazine purple for shadows. Linda said it felt lonely. Exactly right. I took pictures of everything, every page, every sketch, every dated entry. I sent them to Nathan. He told me to document the missing paintings, to make a list, to keep records of Emma's shows and sales, to screenshot her social media posts, her interviews, her exhibition listings. "You don't have to blow this up," Nathan said, "but you need to protect yourself, and you need to talk to Daniel. He deserves to know the truth, even if he doesn't want to hear it." I spent the next 2 weeks building a file. I photographed every remaining painting in the spare room. I printed Emma's social media posts, her interviews, her exhibition listings. I cross-referenced them with my notebooks. The evidence was clear. 5 of her 10 featured works were based directly on my paintings. Same compositions, same emotional frameworks, just executed with more polish and confidence. I made a spreadsheet. Column 1, my painting titles and dates. Column 2, Emma's painting titles and dates. Column 3, similarities. Column 4, evidence.
I worked on it late into the night, fueled by coffee and a kind of focused anger I hadn't felt in years. I didn't want revenge. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted her to admit what she'd done. I wanted her to understand that what she'd taken wasn't just paint on canvas, it was my life, my memories, my survival. But I also knew I needed leverage, because I'd tried the gentle approach. I'd tried waiting, hoping, giving her the benefit of the doubt, and she just kept going, kept building her career on my work, kept accepting praise for ideas that weren't hers. I reached out to Margaret. She connected me with a lawyer friend who specialized in intellectual property. The lawyer, a woman named Susan, reviewed my documentation on a video call. She scrolled through my photos, read my notebook entries, looked at the side-by-side comparisons. This is clear-cut. You have proof of original creation. You have dated documentation, and her work is substantially similar, not just inspired by yours, but directly derivative. You have a strong case for copyright infringement. What does that mean? I asked. It means you could sue. You could force her to remove the works from her portfolio. You could demand a portion of the profits she's made. You could get a judgment that publicly acknowledges you as the original creator. My stomach turned. I don't want to sue her. She's my daughter-in-law. She nodded. Then I'd recommend starting with a cease and desist letter. It's formal, but it's not a lawsuit. It outlines the infringement, demands specific actions, like returning your paintings and crediting you appropriately, and gives her a deadline to respond. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes people don't realize they've crossed a legal line until it's spelled out for them. I thought about it. A cease and desist felt aggressive, final. But what was the alternative? Keep waiting? Keep watching her build a career on my life's work? Let me think about it, I said. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about Linda, about what she would say if she were here. Linda was always practical, fierce when it came to protecting the people she loved. She would have marched over to Emma's house on day one. She would have demanded the paintings back, no apology needed, just action. But Linda was also kind. She believed in second chances. She believed in having hard conversations instead of burning bridges. So I decided to do it her way. One more time.
I called Emma and asked if we could meet for coffee. She sounded surprised, but agreed. We met at a cafe in downtown Asheville on a Tuesday morning. Emma ordered a latte, smiled at me across the table. She asked how I was doing. I said fine. Made small talk about the weather, about Daniel's job. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her a side-by-side comparison. My 1994 painting next to her Appalachian dusk. Her smile faded.
I need my paintings back, I said calmly, and I need you to stop presenting my work as yours. She stared at the screen. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. I thought she might say it had been a mistake, that she'd gotten carried away, that she'd meant to credit me and just hadn't found the right moment. Instead, she leaned back and crossed her arms. Her expression shifted, less surprised, more defensive. I didn't copy you. I was inspired by you. That's what artists do. We build on what we learn. We take techniques and ideas from our teachers and mentors, and we make them our own. You didn't just build on it, Emma. You recreated my compositions. You took my vision and claimed it as yours. You're selling paintings based on my work, giving interviews about your creative process, applying for residencies, all without ever mentioning where these ideas came from. You never did anything with them, she said, her voice sharper now. They were just sitting in your house, collecting dust. I gave them life. I gave them an audience. Isn't that better than them dying in a spare bedroom no one ever sees? I felt something crack inside me, a careful restraint I'd been holding for months. They were mine. I said quietly. You didn't ask. You didn't credit me. You just took them. And now you're acting like you did me a favor. She looked away, jaw tight. I'll bring the paintings back, but I'm not taking down my work. I earned that exhibition. I earned that residency application. I put in the work to execute those pieces professionally. That's not nothing. With my ideas, my compositions, my emotional foundation, with my execution, my skill, my willingness to actually put myself out there instead of hiding. She leaned forward. You know what your problem is, Robert? You're bitter. You spent your whole life teaching high school art instead of pursuing your own career, and now you're jealous that I'm doing what you never had the courage to do. The words hung in the air. I felt them land, felt the sting, because part of me wondered if she was right. Part of me had always wondered what would have happened if I'd tried harder, pushed further, been braver. But that didn't make what she'd done okay. I made choices, I said quietly. I chose my family. I chose stability. I chose to paint for myself, not for galleries or recognition. That doesn't mean my work is worthless. It doesn't mean you get to take it. She stood, grabbed her purse. I'll bring your paintings back this weekend. Then she left. I sat there for a long time, staring at my cold coffee. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, but also, strangely, relieved. I'd said what needed to be said. I'd given her a chance to do the right thing. Now I'd see if she took it.
I drove home and called Nathan, told him what happened. He didn't hesitate. Send the lawyer's letter. You gave her a chance, she chose to dismiss you. What about Daniel? He'll be upset, but he needs to know the truth. And honestly, Dad, if she's willing to do this to you, what else is she capable of? Daniel deserves to know who he married. I sent the letter the next day. Susan drafted it, kept it professional but firm. It outlined the copyright violations, demanded Emma remove the disputed works from her portfolio in public exhibitions, and requested a public acknowledgement of the original source material. It gave her 2 weeks to respond. Emma called Daniel instead of responding to me. He called me an hour later, furious. I'd never heard him so angry. What are you doing? He shouted. You're trying to ruin her career. Do you have any idea how hard she's worked? How much this means to her? I'm protecting my work, I said. She's your family, Dad. You're supposed to support her, not tear her down the moment she starts to succeed. She stole from me, Daniel. She took my paintings, recreated them, and sold them as her own. That's not success. That's fraud. You're just jealous. You're a bitter old man who can't stand to see someone else doing what you never could. The words echoed what Emma had said. I wondered if they'd discussed it, planned what to say. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said quietly, but I'm not dropping this. Those paintings are my life's work. I have a right to protect them. Then you don't have a son, Daniel said, and hung up. I stood there, holding the phone, feeling like I'd been punched. Nathan called 10 minutes later. I told him what Daniel had said. Nathan was quiet for a moment. He'll come around, Nathan finally said. When he calms down and actually looks at the evidence, he'll see you were right. What if he doesn't? Then that's his choice, but you still did the right thing. The next week was agony. I heard nothing from Emma, nothing from Daniel. I barely ate, barely slept. I kept imagining Daniel at Thanksgiving, Emma at Christmas, the grandchildren I might never meet. I kept wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Nathan checked in daily, kept me grounded. Margaret brought me groceries, sat with me in the kitchen while I stared at my coffee. You're doing the right thing, she kept saying, even when it's hard.
Then, 3 days before the deadline, I got an email from the Vermont residency program. They'd received an anonymous tip about Emma's work and were investigating. They asked if I could provide documentation to support the claim that her portfolio contained derivative works. I sent everything: the notebooks, the photos, the side-by-side comparisons. I felt sick doing it, like I was betraying my own family. But I also felt something else, a kind of grim determination. This had gone too far. Emma had had multiple chances to do the right thing. She'd chosen not to. 2 days later, Emma withdrew her application. She posted a vague statement on social media about needing to reassess her artistic direction and taking time to reconnect with my creative roots. The comments were supportive, sympathetic. No one knew the real reason. Emma returned my paintings the following weekend. She left them on my porch without knocking. 5 canvases, carefully wrapped in bubble wrap, propped against my door. No note, no apology. I carried them inside one by one, unwrapped them in the spare bedroom, checked them for damage. They were fine, untouched, but they felt different somehow, like they'd been contaminated by everything that had happened. Daniel didn't call, didn't text. Days turned into weeks. I sent him a message saying I loved him, that my door was always open, that I hoped we could talk when he was ready. He didn't respond. I'd lost him, at least for now. But I'd kept my work. I'd kept my integrity. I'd stood up for myself when it would have been easier to stay silent.
It's been 3 months now. Daniel and I have exchanged a few emails, short, polite, empty. He tells me about work, about the weather. I tell him I'm fine, ask how he's doing. Neither of us mentions Emma. Neither of us mentions what happened. He's still angry. I understand. I disrupted his life, his marriage. I made things complicated. I forced him to see something he didn't want to see. But I couldn't let it go. Some betrayals are too deep to ignore. Emma never apologized. I don't think she ever will. In her mind, she was just ambitious, just resourceful. Maybe she even believed she'd transformed my work into something new. Maybe she convinced herself that what she'd done was acceptable, that the art world operates on different rules, that influence and appropriation are the same thing. But intention doesn't erase harm, and silence doesn't erase theft. I've started painting again, slowly. I set up my easel by the window, where the light is best in the mornings. I'm working on a new series, views I've never painted before, places I've never been. I bought a book of photographs from Iceland, started sketching volcanic landscapes and midnight sun. I'm building something that's entirely mine, something no one can take. Margaret comes by once a week. We sit on the porch, drink coffee, talk about nothing important. She doesn't ask about Daniel. She knows I'll talk about it when I'm ready. Nathan calls every Sunday. He's proud of me, he says. He tells me I did the right thing, that standing up for yourself is never easy, but always worth it. I believe him some days. Other days, I'm not so sure. Margaret asked me last week if I regret confronting Emma. I thought about it for a long time before answering. No, I finally said. I regret the cost, but not the choice. Some things are worth the fight, even when the fight costs you everything. She nodded, asked if I'd ever show my work now that I'm painting again. I told her maybe, someday, when I'm ready. For now, I'm painting for the same reason I always have, because it makes sense of things. because it's how I process loss and betrayal and the strange, complicated shape of family. Because these mountains, these colors, these quiet moments of light and shadow, they're mine, and no one can take that away. I hope one day Daniel will understand that. I hope he'll see that protecting your life's work isn't cruelty, it's dignity. And dignity, in the end, is all we really own. I hope he'll see that I didn't do this to hurt Emma. I did it to honor the work Linda and I built together, the life we shared, the art that came from our hardest moments. Those paintings weren't just images on canvas. They were memories, grief, survival. They were love, translated into color and form. They deserved to be acknowledged. I deserved to be acknowledged. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this, that invisibility isn't noble, that silence isn't peace, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for the people you love is to speak up, even when your voice shakes, even when it costs you. This is my emotional story, my real-life story of betrayal and boundary. If you've faced something similar, if you've had to choose between peace and principle, between family harmony and personal integrity, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. How did you handle it? Do you have regrets? Or do you feel you made the right choice? And if these kinds of honest family drama stories resonate with you, if you appreciate narratives that don't tie everything up with a neat bow, but instead sit in the complexity of real human relationships, please consider subscribing. Sometimes, the quietest battles are the ones that matter most. Sometimes, standing up for yourself is the bravest thing you can do, even when no one applauds. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, your work, your voice, your life, they matter. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.